Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday to you. Welcome to Coffee Break. I am Spencer Campbell, aka Gila RPGs. And every Sunday, I sit down with friends and awesome people in the indie RPG scene, and we just talk about whatever. I have Logan Dean with me here, which I'm very excited about. Logan and I were just talking about Souls games just before this, and we might continue that conversation in just a moment, but let me take a pause here. Logan, why don't you introduce yourself to the fine folks at home?
Hi, I'm Logan. I live in Chicago. I wrote some games. Um, Currently writing some new games, and that's about it. I wrote a game called The Company, corporate survival horror. Um, it's uh, it's a love letter to shitty jobs, and like Michael Crichton and Resident Evil and stuff.
Yeah.
And the other stuff too, but mostly I had a bad job for 11 years, and I wrote a game about it.
I
But
didn't realize
it's
that
an
was the
action.
inspiration for that.
Oh yeah,
Interesting.
working. I had nothing to do at my old job really a whole lot of
Okay.
the time, so I like would work on this game. Um, I worked at the Art Institute of Chicago for like 11 years and like
Oh,
in
okay.
an
You hated
administrative
it?
role. No, the working at the museum is amazing. Like
Yeah.
font of inspiration. Just my job.
Job.
It
Yeah.
sucked. So it was a job. Um, yeah, that's I wrote some other games. You can find my stuff at Mega. I think there's
Corp?
dash mega dash corp.itch.io.
Oh, is there a dash in there?
Yeah, somebody else has Megacorp, so that's
Oh,
cool.
brutal. Oh, yeah, it
I'm
is
gonna get
Mega
it.
Dash Corp. I can see it here at the
It's
bottom
Mega
of
Dash. Yeah, at the bottom of is that
that
Demon
second.
Fucked?
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
Demon Fucked.
96,
This is very
which is
good.
the last thing I made, I think. Or
Yeah,
the
I think
last thing I
so.
published anyway.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
I was working on the edits for Graveway, and that afterwards I was on like a roll and that just fell out of my head.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I'm excited to talk about Graveway. I'm excited to
Oh
talk about
yeah, Graveway.
Company, Extraction, all these things.
Yeah, get after it.
And the other I forgot the name off the top of my head. The you made like a 20-minute like XCOM game that you play.
Oh yeah.
What the fuck is it called again?
It's called The Council.
The Council.
That I made in I think like April 2020 when I was not having a good time. I don't think anybody was. And I thought about it in the shower and then like I that also fell out of my head. I have not updated it. People want some uh like updates to it. I just haven't really revisited it. I don't play a lot of these. So
Just release them and throw them out there.
I kind of just like throw them out of the list. Like I've never played What a Terrible Night. I've never played The Council. Um, it just kind of makes sense in my head
Yeah.
that it would work. Um,
I mean, that's what I do
and
too. Like, I don't play most of my stuff. Like, it's a rare occurrence that I got played before it got released. It was exactly
it's
like you said. It's like, in theory, this is a game that should function, and so I'm gonna go
right.
put it out there, and it should probably work.
Like my internal pre-flight is like, yeah, that works. And then there's probably like a litter of typos and like the first the first release of Demon Fuck Cleveland is just like a minefield of typos. And I was just like, God damn it. Um, I haven't played that either.
I mean, my big thing is like, yeah, like typos and stuff. That stuff happens. Like, even when I have stuff in my games that like ultimately it's like, wait, how does this work exactly? When you read it afterwards in terms of the rules, and I'm like, I trust you all as a table to like be able to figure this out. Like I
Right.
trust you. Like I'm giving you the bones, and you can put the meat on those bones, and you can flavor that meat however you want. Let me get into a real weird analogy here with this.
Play for that meat. Um, yeah, I was talking to somebody yesterday about how like play happens interpersonally, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't happen in the mechanics. Like you're not like when you make a recipe, you're making it to eat it, not to like enjoy like you're not like fawning over how it's written.
Right.
Uh like man, that told me to whip those eggs really good.
Such an evocative paragraph that they spent on how to separate
Right.
eggs. I
Like
really
you're
feel
not
like I
getting
was in the moment.
I think it'd be fun to have examples of play in recipes. Just like Jane has 3 eggs. She cracks 2 of them and puts them into the bowl. Um,
Also,
but
instances
like
where it doesn't go well too, like because you got to give examples when things don't go well too.
I think we should put examples of play in more places.
Why not?
On the train. Uh, I don't know. Yeah, but play like you play to interact. Like there's exceptions, right? Like 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is about like you interacting with that book,
Right.
and then like and how you form thoughts through that, and like tell stories. And but like most games are just like you want to tell stories together, and I try to let the rules stay out of the way.
Mm,
Um, because I don't find creativity in rules. I don't. That actually is like antithetical to creative thought for me.
yeah.
So if I can keep the rules in their own section and then like have people just kind of like play around them, that's ideal for me. Like I want you to, if you have a question about the rules, it doesn't matter. Like
Right.
they exist with you now. Like that's this belongs to you.
Yeah.
Like leave me alone. Um like I posted the other day, like when people ask me about rules clarifications, I'm like, it doesn't matter. What do you think? Like,
That's the
if it's bad, like if I fucked up like in a typo sense, and like it was supposed to be like, oh yeah, you should roll dice here instead of stare at the page. Then that's on me. But most of the time, I leave stuff vague so that people can fill in the gaps and play how they want.
That's literally I do the same thing. Like I leave intentional holes in the text because I think the table will create the filling in a much more interesting way than I ever possibly could trying to codify everything. And so like exactly like you said. Like I when somebody comes forward and I've made like a glaring mistake in my rule book, it's like, okay, yeah, oops, I should have done that. But when it's other things like, hey, are they allowed to do this? It's like, I don't know, man. Like probably. Do you want them to be able to do it? Do it then. Like I'm not your boss, I'm not your dad. I'm not there at
I'm
the
not your boss.
table
Yeah,
with
right.
you.
I something that comes up, or at least it came up in the release of the company a lot, was people wanted hard rules on excuse me, uh, equipment and like
Mm.
weight. And I
Oh.
was like, and like how much stuff people could carry. And I was like, I honestly didn't think about it because I don't care.
Right.
And like, because like I know there's a place, and I know there's a like a group of people that like
Yeah.
really nitty gritty, like count every coin, count every pound of rope that you have, and like over encumbrance rules, which are like my least favorite thing in the world. Like
Yeah.
I hate that shit in Fallout. I hate it when it's like, yeah, you can't fast travel because you're carrying too much stuff. I was like, the whole game is carrying stuff.
Right.
Like, what the hell? Um, like I was like, I guess you could like, and I usually when there's a rule thing that I didn't think of, I just make something up. Um, and I'm like, yeah, this is the rules for that now.
This is canon now.
If you're gonna come to me for a rules clarification or like to expand on something, I assume that what I'm gonna say is what you're gonna take.
Right.
So like, and some people don't accept just a vague answer. They
Yeah.
need like a rule. And so
Yeah.
like I'll just make something up.
And now that's the rule.
Because that's what they want, right? Like that's what they're
Right.
looking for. And so like if I can make something up that makes sense, sure. I find I work in, making traditional board games too. So
Mm.
like that's my day job, and people want a lot. Like people
Yeah,
want a
that's
lot.
that's like a different space, right? Like I feel like board games do want that. They want constraints because they want the
Yes.
box. It's good to be in the box because the board game is it's meant to be played in that box. It is not the
Right.
the imaginary land like mind space that we play with role playing games. And so like I understand that with like a board game where like the last thing you want is like, oh shit, how is this supposed to work again? Am I allowed to do this? But like
You really
also,
don't want it to be vague. Uh
yeah,
because that's not what people subscribed to there. Like that's not what they signed up for.
right,
Like they signed up for rules and to play a thing in a finite amount of time and space.
right,
And like they don't like it when you're like, use your imagination.
right.
'Cause they
They didn't buy
feel like it's
Calvin Ball, even though that would be pretty cool.
I it's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
Like we make pretty rules light, party games, and people are always like, give us more stuff.
Mm,
Like we always want more. I'm like, well, you haven't even played the game yet. Like,
right.
what more do you want? Um, it's also interesting because like board games, you have to sell them sight unseen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People rarely play a game before they buy it.
Right.
Um, the box isn't showing you every like piece of movement in the game. It's showing you a picture and you
Right.
have to sell it based off of what it looks like. So it's very weird. Like it's a weird space to be in. But I do both. So like I hang out with like I love writing RPGs on my own and like
Mm,
publishing like self-publishing them. But I also really like, developing board games. And I
yeah.
think it's a big industry. It's a big industry. It's kind of like a small town because everybody kind of knows each other,
Mm,
which is wild because it's like a global
right.
juggernaut industry that makes billions of dollars, and WotC lords over us all, and like Hasbro and WotC are just these like weird things that exist on
Right.
another
They're the Erd
realm,
tree. They're always there in the background. You can't not see them all the time, looming over you.
bragging about their profits and then jacking Magic the Gathering prices.
Yeah, exactly. See, you get it. It's Erd tree stuff. I do
Tree
want
stuff.
I do want to say so Navi in chat, she mentioned something back to our talks earlier about like examples of play and recipes and stuff, but other things. I think this is a good point. Normalize examples of play where the system is being stretched and interpreted at the table, you cowards. And I agree, like that I think that like more instances where there is that like example of play in there that it is okay, it's not fundamentally clear what is supposed to be done in this situation. Let us create a crafted dialogue that shows what it would look like if we needed to figure out what makes sense in the scenario, or what do we want to have happen in this scenario.
Yeah, I think I'm bad at examples of play. I'm gonna just be really straightforward. I'm bad at using them. I'm bad at implementing them. I'm bad at thinking about them.
Yeah.
I make a lot of stuff that's in world. Um,
Mm.
like I make artifacts and ephemera. And in my limited scope, I'm like, yeah, examples of play that takes away from it, but it's really important, and I love it in other books because it helps
Mm.
me visualize, like, figure out how it works. I think that it should be, in my opinion, in how I design, I want to create rule sets that are clear enough that I don't need to
Mm.
like lay them out like that. I fail at that all the time,
But it's the
but
dream.
it's the unattainable dream.
Yeah.
But I am working on like in the company update. I want to do I do want to put examples of play in there because like there are some things that are a little crunchy.
Mm.
I'm so bad at figuring out like how to make combat fun because I just don't care. Like I made a game that I want people to run away from combat as often as possible,
Right.
which is why I made combat so clunky in that game because you
Mm.
shouldn't really want to do it. So I
Right.
made it unenjoyable.
Makes sense.
Um, Whereas like you play D&D and like that is a combat simulator, and they've made a really good combat simulator there.
Mm.
It's a little too much math for me, but that's a complaint I have with any, like D20 system is
Sure.
like, why am I doing math? I'm supposed to be having fun. Um, but then I'll turn around and I'll play a percentile system like all day.
Right, of course.
Because I'm made of hypocrisy. Um, I like examples of play that I'm not a huge fan of those ones that span like 10, 20
Yeah.
pages. Like I'm listening to the story of people like play this game. It's like, okay, well, I could watch a video for that. Like
Mm.
that would be fine. But stuff, yeah, I think that stuff that's like just that it's gonna hit hard, like it's gonna be weird to crunch for
Yeah.
people. That stuff needs it. I just think it because it's hard to write this bullshit.
It
And
is.
like and sometimes it's good for us to put that into perspective because then we understand how it works.
Do I know how my rule works? Can I
I right.
manifest a situation where it actually functions?
And sometimes like I'm working on Whisper Falls right now, and like I just scrapped the entire system mechanically. I just
Mm,
scrapped it on Saturday because I was like, I don't know how to write how to explain this. I was using I mean, I scrapped it so I can tell you about it. It was I was using suits of cards,
okay.
like ace through king. Um, and that was each player got a suit of cards, and that was their dice
Okay.
and their like HP and their well-being. So like the idea was you could roll 1 to 3d6 as a challenge and then draw from the card, and that's like your roll. And then stuff would give you like bonuses or buffs to like up your card or whatever. But if you lost, you have to discard the next card on your pile. And so
Okay.
like so you have 13 cards, and that is your like well-being and your health. So like to get down to like lower cards, you're not doing so well.
Yeah.
Um could not for the life of me figure out how to explain this. Like I was like playing around with it and I like it. like most stuff is 2d6, right? So the total of 12 and you have 13 cards, like numbering 1 to 13. So there's always like a chance that you could like beat it. The
Right.
cards are being removed from your deck randomly. You don't know what's being removed. So you don't know what's in your deck. I don't know, there's something there. It
Yeah.
was just not clicking with the tone of the game
Yeah.
and it felt too novel. Like it just felt like and I want to make novel mechanics.
Right.
Like I want to provide mechanics for people who aren't playing this stuff all the time. Made of stuff that's like playing cards, D6s, stuff that
Mm-hmm.
anybody has.
Right.
Because I think making it so like anybody can pick up the game and play it immediately creates it's not as prohibitive.
Right.
Like buying polyhedral dice is a gate to
Mm,
play. Like having to buy like bespoke cards or rule books is a gate to play. That's why most of my stuff is pay what you want because
right.
I really want people to like engage with the product. Um, but you should be able to like pick up and go.
Yeah.
Like that's why I think one of my favorite RPGs of all time is actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf. And because it's all you need is note cards and d6s and
Uh-huh.
something to count and you can pick it up and go and there's no prep on for the GM and you just like fall into it.
Right.
And I love that. It's one page. I love one page RPGs. I love stuff like that because
Yeah.
like we should be encouraging people to like explore without being like you got to buy this giant box of stuff and and like like and in a year we're going to release an errata that tells you to remove half the pages and, and like I'm just like okay like, the G.I. Joe game that just came out, like,
Oh
I
yeah.
think it's Renegade Studios.
Yeah.
Like, there's an errata now that's just like, ignore this page. Just it doesn't matter anymore. And I'm
Eh,
like, well,
in hindsight, we'd like you to just tear that page out, please.
or like the Dark Souls RPG, like
Oh
all the
my
stuff that's going on with that.
god. What a disaster that whole thing is.
And I'm just like, man, are the licenses okay? Is everybody doing all
No,
right?
they're not
Because you
okay.
just crank like I'm glad people are getting paid to make this stuff.
Mm,
Um, it just doesn't like we're cranking out licensed RPGs like it's like the store's on fire, right?
mm-hmm.
Like why does every license need a bespoke role-playing game around it? I think we should ask ourselves this question. Like, does everything need a role-playing game? Like,
No.
do we need a Blade Runner role-playing game when there are so
Ooh.
many like fantastic cyberpunk games out there? Like,
Right.
uh I by exception is the Alien game because I think the Alien game is
Is very
brilliant.
good. Yeah.
Like I think it's one of the better licensed RPGs that are out there. And it's just because of that dice mechanic that they introduced, which isn't like revolutionary.
Yeah.
It's not breaking the mold, but it's doing something in a licensed RPG space that's actually inventive and
Yeah.
novel and like forward thinking instead of just like slapping it onto Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm just waiting for Bungie to give me the call to give me
Dude,
the green light on the
get it.
Destiny one. Like, just make that happen so that I can stop like toying around with Light being like, oh, it's kind of like Destiny. No,
Kinda
it's
like
just
it.
Destiny. Okay, let's all just be honest with
I
ourselves.
would really like yeah, I mean, I've been begging Konami to give me the Silent Hill IP for
Mm,
years, and now
hmm.
I just filed the serial numbers off Silent Hill, and that's what Whisper Falls is essentially.
Nice.
And there's a lot of Twin Peaks in there, and like
You
it's
meant
very
okay.
no, go for it, please. I'm just rambling now.
Well, I had this thought in my I had this thought because you mentioned the cards, and I saw a couple people talking about this yesterday, and because I want to do more like games that have decks of cards, especially decks of cards, because like you said, D6 cards, those are things people have. D6 people probably have because they probably have like Monopoly in the house or
Sure,
Yahtzee or something like that. But like a deck of cards is like that one. I'm pretty damn confident that most people are gonna have that in their house, and like
absolutely.
and I want specifically I want a deck building RPG. And I know there's a couple of them that are out there. Like there's a small handful of them, but I want that specifically because when my partner and I play board games, her favorite game for us to play is Star Realms. Which
It's a great game.
if you're unfamiliar with it, it's a two-player deck builder game where you're making a deck filled with spaceships and bases from various factions trying to destroy the other opponent. And each faction kind of has a very different play style. And so you're making a deck that eventually is kind of crafted to your own play style. And she loves the deck building. Like she gets it. She's like, okay, I know that if I'm adding green in here, I'm just being a big mean motherfucker, like throwing big damage and stuff like that. Or if I'm red, I'm trying to like thin out my deck by scrapping cards, so I have a really efficient deck. So like those that I want in a role playing game, and I don't know how to
Yeah.
do it, and I don't know who. I know there's a handful that have done it, but like I want that is what is all I wanted to say.
I chasing the dragon of like amazing card game experiences is has been like something I've been doing since I was a kid because I loved Magic the Gathering growing up.
Yeah.
I still love Magic the Gathering. Like that company can't take my love of Magic the Gathering away from me. Um, I think it's great. I love Commander. I really unabashedly love Magic the Gathering, and it's got staying power, which I
Mm.
think is amazing. Um, I love deck builder games. I am a big fan of Dominion.
Uh huh.
I used to play so much Dominion. Oh man, we should play Dominion.
We should play a lot of
Like,
games.
dude, I have a pile of games in the back, and then I'm just never get played anymore. But I think it's really interesting. I love the idea of creating a deck of cards based around your character,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's what you do. Gloomhaven does that, right? Like,
Right.
which Gloomhaven is its own thing. It's like it's not an RPG. It's kind of not a board game. It's just its own.
It's
It
22
exists on its
pounds
own.
of something else.
Thing is bonkers. I've only played it like one time, and I was like, yeah, I guess this is fun. I haven't had the time to like really dig into it, and
Right.
because who does?
No, but
Oh, like
it takes 2 hours to set up and then 2 hours to take down. And somewhere in between those things, you're supposed to also play the game.
I used to play Arkham Horror like all the time. Like about 10 years ago, I would leave it on my kitchen table and like just play like it was chess. Like
Right.
I was just like play because you play it one player, you just play a bunch of characters. So I just come in and out of the room and like, oh yeah, this player's gonna do this. And like I think Arkham Horror is the reason I started to like really break down mechanics.
Mm.
Because I love Arkham Horror Second Edition to the moon. Like it's a complex, dumb game that it has a lot of like dead end mechanics,
Right.
but I unabashedly love it because I think it's a very silly game,
Yeah.
and you can do silly fun with it. Like there's and fishmen are in it. You can't go wrong with that. Everybody loves a fish person.
You gotta
Uh,
have it.
and like, speaking of Star Realms, like my wife and I play a game called Dust Biters a lot.
I'm not
Um,
familiar with that one.
It's made by I am 8-bit in 2020. They're doing a second printing soon, but you play as rival road gangs
Okay.
in the post-apocalypse, like in a chase.
Oh,
And so you
nice.
make a convoy out of cards. Each card is a different vehicle, and then you play your own convoy cards to try and knock all of your opponent's cards out of the line. And there's a dust storm tailing the convoy, so the last card is always discarded at the end of the
Nice.
turn. And so yeah, it's fast. It's only 17 cards, I think.
Oh, sick.
Uh, it's great. It's a really great two-player game. It's really quick. I'm constantly like impressed with how these 17 cards interact with each other
Right.
and how there's all of these different combinations. And so like every couple of years or so, like a game comes out that I'm just kind of like, oh wow, that's cool. Like it's not a
Mhm.
lot. It's because you should be, I don't know, as a designer, I feel like limiting yourself to like narrowing your field, being
Mhm.
like, I want to use this and this. That kind of that pushes me creatively more than just being given all the tools.
Total freedom is horrifying for the creative process. Like
Absolutely.
constraints are fuel for the creative process, even though it feels incredibly counterintuitive. And if you get me started, I will talk about this for 5 hours from a psychology perspective. Take my psych of RPGs class when I offer it, and I'll talk all about constraints.
And like the necessity is the mother of invention, right? So
Hmm.
like you when you're like, oh, I want to use cards. Because I've been trying to crack cards
Right.
for a little while in a way that feels good. And it's just like on this one, I was like, I think I was trying too hard to push it.
Mm.
And stop trying to make cards work. That's how like it feels sometimes. Like
Yeah.
quit doing that. But I've had a deck of cards here for a while, and I've just been kind of like tinkering with different stuff. Like there's a bit in Mindjacker for a little bit where I was like, cards. And then my brain was like, why? like
Because.
like the council uses cards, right? Like
Right.
but it uses them as events. And initiative because like each player is a different suit. So someone
Hmm.
is pulling the cards. Uh like the council's a ripoff of the XCOM board game, 100%. Just like What a Terrible Night is a ripoff of Betrayal at House of the Hill. I'm
Mm.
just ripping stuff off constantly,
Aren't we all?
and then just being like, this is new. Um,
Look at this thing I made.
but I think that's important. I don't know. I'm trying to emulate what I like in these games because I think there's something there, and I think you
Hmm.
can distill that down to a simpler process. I always think you can make it simpler.
Yeah.
And with the council, the XCOM board game, I don't know if you've ever played the XCOM board game.
I have not.
Uh, it's an amazing game. It's 4 players co-op, and you each play a different role. Like somebody's the communications officer,
Okay.
somebody's like air command, somebody's the soldier guy, sending guys out to like on missions, and it's all in real time. It runs off an app that
Okay.
tells you all the things that are going to happen, and then you have to kind of like execute that process, kind of like Space Alert, if you've ever played Space Alert.
I haven't played it, but I'm aware of it.
I like Galaxy Trucker, I think is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like it's good. It's
Hmm.
just kind of like it's an XCOM board game,
Yeah.
and like I think it's one of the best games ever made, but I don't think a lot of people play it. And
Mm.
so with the comp or the council, I was like, how do I distill that feeling into something you can play remote?
Right.
And so like that's how it like somebody is reading the cards as they come up, pulling a card. Oh, it's heart turn. Like, what do you want to do? Like,
Right.
and then the suit tells you whose the turn is, and then the number determines what happens.
Right.
Because there's two things on a card. You can do so much there.
Right.
Or like face cards are really cool. I'm constantly obsessed with using tarot cards for stuff because I think they're just really neat.
They are
Uh,
cool.
but that moves farther into that prohibitive thing because like
Right.
everybody definitely does not have tarot cards at home,
Right.
and like you have to go to like a specialty store just to buy them. It's not like they're at Target or at 7-Eleven,
Right.
although it would be really cool and weird if they
Pretty
were.
cool.
But I'm constantly like, I want cards to work.
Yeah.
I think they should. Like, it makes sense, right? It feels so antithetical to RPGs to put cards in there for some reason.
Yeah, it's a it's that weird bridging the gap of like I've always known this as dice and now you're saying cards and it's like dice and cards are not like they're not like on opposite ends of things. They're actually pretty close to one another on the spectrum
Really
of like
close.
things.
They're,
So
they're things that represent numbers.
right. They have
And
probabilities, odds, all of that stuff that we think about when we think about dice. They exist in
I mean,
cards.
if we're trying to like break the mold, we should try just to get away from numbers at
Yeah.
all. Like the epitome of play would just be like having mechanics that sprout out of your brain organically, and then you can just play like tennis with ideas. That can't happen though. We don't have a system for that. Like we don't have like a way to do that, and numbers fill that gap.
Right.
Um, but I'd love to play a game that has no numbers. I don't even know, like or dice or cards, like that you're just. But that's just like collaborative storytelling. That's just
Right. Then
improvisation.
right, exactly.
Like, and people need rules, like we said. Like people need them.
Right.
Some people really need them.
All this card game talk. We've got to get together sometime.
Absolutely, we live in
Because
the same town.
right. So it's absurd that we haven't. But at the same, well, there's been a pandemic. But
We keep threatening to do it.
we do. Um, we were talking about card games. Have you played Netrunner? Because
Oh my god, I'm so glad you brought up
I
Netrunner.
love Netrunner, and I need somebody to play Netrunner.
I love Netrunner so much. I think I have like 3 core sets.
Wow. Okay.
I love Netrunner so damn much. I have had a criminal deck that just
I mean, it has
I
been years and years
adore.
and years since I've played it because nobody around me plays it. So,
My friend Matt and I were the only people in our group that played it, and we would play it. And like we used to improvise together as a 2-man improv group, and like we would just bring our decks before shows and like we'd be at bars and stuff just playing Netrunner and be like, what are you doing? Be like, we're busy.
this is how we get into the zone.
Like, um I love Netrunner. I think it's one of the best games ever made.
Yeah.
Richard Garfield knocked it out of the park with that, and it was his fall magic. And like I've never played 1E Netrunner because I've never been able to find it.
Mm,
But the Fantasy Flight version of Netrunner
right.
with the Android like setting, I think is the best game they've ever made. The second best game, Battlestar Galactica, was the best game they ever made.
Mm.
I love Battlestar Galactica. I mean, but the 2 things those have in common is they don't make them anymore.
Yeah.
Like they reskinned Battlestar Galactica with some garbage Howie Lovecraft bullshit, and which I'm always like, why? Come on, guys, like,
right.
let's do something else. We don't need to keep giving this guy like weird props. You absolutely do not have to hand it to Lovecraft. And then Battlestar Galactica, they lost the IP, which like, or no, Battlestar Galactica, they lost the IP. I'm pretty sure with Netrunner, like, because WotC was like loaning it out,
right?
And I guess they just like pulled it back in. I doubt they'll ever make it again.
I know it's heartbreaking that there isn't just more. I mean, there's that fan project that's out there. Project.
Yeah.
I don't know how to like Nicey or however you pronounce NISEI.
Yeah, like Nice Eye,
Yeah.
And then like and the people who did the tabletop simulator versions of Netrunner are like they're doing God's work over there. And like every time I go to a show, like I haven't been to a show in a while. I had to go to PAX for work in December. I try and hunt down like data packs and stuff because people still have them. I think there's only one big box expansion I don't have, and it's like the last one. I have Creation and Control. I have Honor and Profit, which is my favorite one because it's like I love Criminal. Like Criminal is my favorite class. I love being a runner and I love Criminal. Because Criminal is just so shitty. Like it's so like it's all about finding like weird backdoors and stuff, and like getting into servers you shouldn't be in, or getting it tricking the corp, and like you run on one server and you're like, actually I'm gonna hit up your archives, like and then on the other side I like playing what is it, Wayland? Like they have
Wayland, yeah.
take Wayland?
Yeah, they did. They just straight up.
Nice. Yeah, I like Wayland. I like Jinteki just because it's also on that side of like fuckery, like laying traps in your servers and stuff. NBN, my buddy Bat plays NBN all the time and I hate it. Because NBN is just about giving runners tags.
Right.
I hate tags because it's like, oh, you can't do this because you have 2 tags. I was like, I don't want the tags. I don't have enough money to get rid of these tags. Leave me alone. Like, it's such a good game,
It's very
and
good.
the community around it, the meta around it when it was going on, like when it
Mm.
was live, was so cool because it was constantly changing. I love the idea of the living card game. I
Yeah.
think Fantasy Flight botches it constantly. Um, like they have this great idea, which is like a card game that's constantly evolving. They got rid of the secondary card market by having
Hmm.
the boosters be sets.
Right.
Um, and they just botch it all the time. They're constantly dropping the ball with it. And like, but I'm convinced Fantasy Flight is just a front to sell cardboard to people. Um, the way they make those games.
Yeah.
And it's so weird watching them because they got bought, right? Like they got bought by Asmodee or something.
I think so, yeah. So like they shuttered their RPG division, and
Which is bonkers to me
I
because they
know.
were doing good, they were doing groundbreaking stuff over there.
Yeah.
Like the Genesis system is
Very
smart.
cool. Yeah.
Like I loved those Star Wars games. I thought
Hmm.
those were really cool. They don't use math. They don't use numbers. They
There you
use
go.
the symbol dice.
Right.
And it was so like, and I credit those Fantasy Flight Star Wars games with giving us and giving designers, I think, the tools and the permission to go outside of the D20 system. Like I think
Mm.
stuff like Blades in the Dark like directly translates from those storytelling games that Fantasy Flight was making, because you have stuff like position in there and
Right.
like advantage and like failing in a good way,
Right. Exactly.
failing forward, and
Right.
like I'm still baffled that they shut that all down because like it seemed like that's a license that it's a um botched it so hard. It just is endlessly funny to me.
The other game that the Fantasy Flight division did that I love. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Is End of the World. Um,
Yeah, I know that one.
I
Because you just
I
play as
you
yourself,
play as
right?
yourself. It is my go-to game when somebody's like, I've never played a role-playing game before. I run them through a slimmed down version of End of the World because you don't have
Nice.
to pretend you're Glorfell the elf. You're just you, and it's like you literally are you in the situation you're in right now, like wherever you've all gathered to play, and then the apocalypse starts happening, and you're like, okay, so the sun suddenly disappeared. What do you do? And you're like, oh, what would I do if the sun went away right now? And the character
That
creation for End of the World is some of my favorite character creation out there. Basically, you have a stat spread very similar to what you see in other things, and you have points and you build yourself, and then you present it to the table. And with each stat you present, and you're like, well, I think I'm this strong. And then the table all thinks about it, and then they vote. They hold out a die whether or not they think your strength should be higher, lower, or if you got it right. And then if you got it right, cool, it stays where it is. If you overestimated your ability on something, you have to take a negative feature later on. You have to like acknowledge an extra negative feature about yourself, like, oh yeah, I have glasses, so like, if these break, I'm gonna be fucked in the apocalypse, sort of thing.
sure.
Or if you underestimate it, it gets to go up, and you get like a positive feature. So like, you get to like build yourself up a little bit. It's very fun to sit around a table and like you can just do character creation on its own, and it's an entertaining game where you're like, okay, how dexterous do you think you actually are, huh,
That's
friend?
that's so interesting, and I'm so like I said, they were doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and it felt like they weren't afraid to just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that they got shuttered. Honestly, like I'm sure those creators are off making cool shit, but
Yeah.
like without like when you have the cart like that carte blanche and like blank check of like a big company behind you to just be like, yeah, let's make this end of the world game. Like I have this idea, and they're like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Uh, like that was cool. But I also think like we're kind of coming into this twilight of this board game bubble coming on, and
Mm.
like big companies aren't going to be taking big risks like that anymore. Like the way supply is right
Yeah.
now is garbage. Like and it's gonna probably get bad again this summer because of
Hmm.
everything shutting down. And like y- the companies that could be taking these risks, like Disney, Hasbro, they're hedging their bets on profits
Right.
instead of like Hasbro's not going to like make Netrunner. Like they're not. They're
Right.
just not going to take that risk because it's a huge gamble and there's no guaranteed profit there.
R-
Like they'll do it with something like Hero Quest, right? Like they have this, IP that's long languishing that people are constantly fighting over. Like, and then they did it on their stupid crowdfunding garbage, right? Like like Hasbro Pulse boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Like, you are Hasbro.
Right.
I love that they're like, yeah, but you guys compete to see if we make this stuff. It's like, come on, dude. Like, fuck you.
It's wild.
Like, and then like Hero Quest made $1 million. And they're like, oh yeah, maybe you guys do like that. Like, or like, but then they'll throw stuff up that's like, yeah, buy a Galactus the size of a toddler. Like, that's cool as hell. I don't have $800 to buy that toy, but like it's kind of neat that they're like, yeah, we'll do this, but they should just be doing it if they want to
Right.
make that stuff. Like, I hate this idea. I mean, I could go into like how much crowdfunding bugs me,
Mm.
like, but it's mostly super backers and shit. Like,
Ugh. Oh, a chill went down my spine.
I have the tag and I want to get rid of it
I
so bad.
know. It's a curse.
Um, but like, yeah, there's a sense of entitlement in crowdfunding that I think is unintentional from the creator, where people I love crowdfunding for what it does for creators.
Yeah.
I think it's changed the world for creators because now we can put our idea forward and be like, "Hey, would you be interested in this?" And people will, either be like yes or no. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's not something we had before, and I think it's changed my life. I'm sure you've had a lot of success with crowdfunding as well,
Yeah.
and there's great things coming out of it. On the backside of it, I think we overlook the fact that people create parasocial relationships with projects,
Hmm.
just like they do with creators, and become entwined with them in a way that is not helpful to the product and
Yeah.
just the project as a whole. I try to be endlessly patient and polite with people, but sometimes people just bug the hell out of me. Or like when like they make suggestions that are like, you should add this. I was like, why should I add that?
Right.
Like, other than you, random person wanting it?
Well, I guess
Like,
if you say so, Superbacker 5. All right, I'll
I,
add it.
I just think if you like, what if someone, what if you're making like a Marvel movie and
Mm.
then like once a week you let people come in and just start like telling you what to do with it.
Right.
Like, you're on set and like, okay, well now we're gonna open up to the comments, and people are like, oh well, Doctor Strange should shave. Like, wow, like you should get rid of this shit. Like, well, come on, man. That's just because you don't like goatees.
Right.
Like, which fair, it makes them kind of creepy, but um, but nobody Disney doesn't give a shit.
Right.
Like, I I I'm as a creator, as an artist, as somebody who wants to like create something for you, I'm open to feedback from my peers that I solicit.
Right.
I'm very big on like not giving unsolicited advice unless people really want it because you can really fuck with people's shit. Uh, Kickstarter is a minefield of unsolicited advice. Like, I'm working a project right now for work on GameFound, and like it's a step in the right direction. It's not perfect,
Mm.
but something I love is that you can't get DMs. Uh,
Ah.
like, because I hate DMs on Kickstarter so
Yeah.
much. It's like, this could have been a comment, but I'm going to come to you directly.
Right.
I'm going to tell you what I think. I'm like, well, don't. If you could not, that'd be
Right.
cool. I'm endlessly thankful to backers and people who like support the projects, that I wouldn't be doing this without them. But I don't think everybody needs to, you know, voice their opinion on what they think about every single project. I think, especially when they're not done.
Right. Well, like
Um,
campaign's still running, production's still going on. So, and it's just like, actually, I think it's really important that my voice be heard in this exact moment about where I think you should be taking this.
from the small amount of information I've gleaned on your project, I
Right.
can tell that I have an opinion that's going to be worthwhile to you. And like that's not inherently like a feature on just that platform. That's the internet at
That's the
large,
internet.
right? Like, uh, I, and it's something that it's an occupational hazard. Like, it's just something you have to like deal with when you're going in. And like I said, like just be endlessly patient with people, and polite. I'm
Mm.
like I'm kind, not always nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because being nice opens a door for a whole other stream of bullshit. But I try to be kind with people and patient. Some people just don't understand that I don't care. Um, and like people who endlessly want rules are like
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's like, well, I mean, at the end of the day, I made it, and I don't care. And like it's done. It's out there. The company is not done. It's not like in the rules and in the book. It says it's an alpha
Mm.
rule set. Like, I don't think it'll ever be done because I don't want to finish it.
Mm.
Like, because I don't think anything I write should be done. Like, I think it should be open to interpretation. It should be open to revision. Um, by creating a like, I'm so stoked that Mothership is finally coming into first edition,
Yeah.
right? Um, because that beta has been going for like what, 5 years, and like
Something like that.
it rules. But like the first edition, like those rules updates, they're really good, and
Mm.
like they're like it's what the game needed, and I'm glad they took that time to really like dial it in. For Whisper Falls, I am taking the like now that I scrapped the card system,
Yeah.
I'm taking the company burnout system and just kind of like slimming it down because I was like, all right, well, we can use this.
Yeah.
I'm slimming it down to 3 stats, and then just like I'm changing stress to weird.
Okay. Slick. Yeah.
And so like just kind of like streamlining it because like I think it works. I think it needs a little there's some places where it could be kind of tuned up. Um and then just kind of retrofitted for this type of play.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the company's all about getting stressed out,
Yeah.
and like the ever escalating the best thing that I accidentally made in the company was made it so that interpersonal conflict is a mechanic. Um and we didn't see that until we started playing the game.
Mm.
And like the jobs, the way they interact became a conflict.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, well, that's cool. That was unintentional." Like people have to because each character class has its own job it has to accomplish in order
Right.
to make or in
To
order
get
to
the
get XP.
drive. Yeah.
To get the drive, which you can spend, which is my favorite thing in the company is that you can spend against yourself. You can spend all your stats in order to survive. Because what's the point of having experience if you're dead?
Right.
So um, like I love that. But what we didn't notice was how the jobs conflict with each other and how people will fight to prioritize what they're supposed to do.
Mm.
And so like I started actually toning down company modules because the interpersonal conflict created horror interpersonally that we just never anticipated.
Mm.
And so like you have to let that breathe because I was like, oh, I gotta foster that. I gotta like incubate that because that's something I've never seen in a game. Is like a
Because normally you
mechanical
don't
reason.
want that. Normally,
Tech-
the assumption of an RPG is that you will not fight one another, that you are all like on the same page, doing the same thing together, and actually you want to avoid conflict if
right.
possible.
So I with the expansion with conflict resolution guidelines, I knocked it up further, which was like I made a character class that is specifically there to create conflict,
Beautiful.
the executive. And so like the executive has secret information that only the executive and the GM have,
Hmm.
and it has to protect that information at all costs. Like it cannot leak that information to the other employees. And so like, but they know they have that information.
Right.
They know the executive knows more than they do, and they're going to try and get it out of them because it can save their lives. But the
Right.
executive's whole job is to not tell them that information. And I'm just like, how can I make the role playing experience worse for people? Um, because like
That's a good motto to have over the computer as I'm typing. How can I make this
You're
work?
having fun. That's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. It's very I mean, I don't know. People are making incredible games. Like you're making incredible games. Fucking like Nate Tremaine's out there fucking cranking out like
Yeah. Unreal.
masterpieces in like afternoons. Like
Mm-hmm.
Sean McCoy and his team are like just like powerhousing it through the indie scene. That third party mothership scene is just bonkers. And
Unreal.
like there's so many people making cool games. Fucking Tim Hutchins. It's like what is that guy even on? Like that fucking Apollo book. I
Yeah.
see it going around. I'm like, what are you ah? And like, and I'm just making my silly little zines. And like everybody is figuring out that like play is what they want it to be.
Mm.
And everybody's like just doing such cool shit. And I'm over here like, okay, how do we just like how do I get the feeling of a Michael Bay movie? How
Mm.
do I like I'm trying to distill like emotions essentially and like recreate these things I want to play. Like with Cleveland,
Yeah.
I wanted to make the first Suicide Squad movie good.
Right.
Um because man, that movie's bad. And then the second one is so much fun. And
Right.
so I was like, okay, well, what's a weird like Gonzo horror thing I can do? And it's like, oh yeah, Cleveland, let's just put a big eye in there and whatever. And like, it's fun, and it's not meant to be read deeply.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think like there's themes in the company that I'm very adamant about, like what do employers owe employees, like what what are we doing in like to help people in like this omega stage capitalism
Mm.
like environment. And like, I think the weirdest thing about the company is like sometimes I have to read things that sound like they would be in the game but are very much real. And like uh I've scrapped whole ideas because like I found out it was a real thing.
Mm.
And, like, I'm like, oh god, that's terrifying. And like I use the company Twitter to like say things that I can't like express myself
Right.
because it wouldn't matter. I'd just be like throwing it on a wall. But when I have my stupid mega corporation be like, hey, yeah, we own 16 United States senators, people are like, that's funny.
Right.
Like it's just a way for me to vent. And like because I have to and, like I have to follow things, like I have to learn about Raytheon and fucking Northern
Mm.
Group and like fly by wire like weird heads up. Like there's this thing, Amazon has this thing, and this is the example I usually throw out. I was writing a company module about a semi truck heist, and it was going to be constantly moving. We have a similar thing. Jared Mason wrote the train job in
Mm.
conflict resolution guidelines, which has a similar movement structure. But I was like, oh, it's a data truck, like it's full of servers, and there's armed guards on there, and they have to get on and like jack this data. Well, that's a real thing. Amazon has this thing called the Snowmobile, which is an 18-wheel truck full of servers with armed guards that they use to move data from data centers across the country. And I was like, well, fuck. It's like, all right,
Of course
in the
that's
bin.
real. Of course it's
Of
real.
course it's real. And like shit like that. And so like, you have to get like real weird with it.
Yeah, it's gonna get harder and harder to to come up with stuff that doesn't exist already, which just
or
is a
like
nightmare.
the fact that we're bringing back company towns and like
Mm.
script, and like Disney wants to make like fantasy villages. I'm just like, guys, like 100 years ago, it was the same shit. And like big companies were murdering unions, just killing people. Like the Battle of Blair Mountain, like coal miners
Mm-hmm.
rose up against their companies and like fucking fought a war. And the Pinkertons fucking murdered those people. And now Amazon's like making a Pinkerton fucking propaganda movie. And like,
Jesus fucking Christ.
and I'm like, okay, cool. So like labor just horseshoed back around to where it was 100 years ago. And I'm mad.
Yeah.
I'm just mad all the time, Spencer. Like, it's like, what am I supposed to do? Vote? Come on. Stop yelling at me. Like,
Mm.
I voted last time. You told me last time that we were gonna fix everything,
Right.
and it's just this cycle. And so I throw it into games, and like I throw my frustration and my
Mm,
fears and like what I want to see. And like the company is satire,
right.
but it's like slowly becoming not. It's like
Yeah.
the Onion. Like the Onion was like is not satire anymore.
Nope.
Like it's just not. It's just what it's a collective like conscience of like, oh yeah, I guess this is funny if it wasn't so real. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't know, man. I like you're making power fantasies that are like fun and like eh, 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 and like I love that when people comment on your stuff and are like, why am I so powerful? And it's like, what are you talking about? Eh,
Right.
You play Dungeons and Dragons, you're basically demigods in that game. Like,
Unkillable.
like you can't even die.
Right. I'm just
Like,
codifying it. I'm saying you can't die now. It's unspoken in D&D, but I'm saying now you can't die.
and I love that like the bravest thing you can do is just take away death.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not that like I'm taking death out of Whisper Falls because I think it takes away from the game.
Mm,
And like that's like with Nova, like it removes an element of play that I don't think people like.
right.
Like permadeath sucks. Like especially in D&D. Like I hate it when a character dies, especially when I've been playing them for so long because I'm like, "Oh, well, now what? I got to
Right.
make another one of these dumbasses?" Like I got to read that whole book again and
Right.
like,
It's a
"Oh yeah, maybe I."
process.
And they made it a process because they want you to engage with the product like that.
Mm,
And like I don't mind making D&D characters. I mind playing them for 3 years and then they just like get hit with like a stalactite and they're like, "Whoa, what's that?" And like I'm playing a wizard right now and I haven't played casters in
mm.
5e. And I love it. It's amazing. But I'm also like, if I die, I'm probably gonna quit this game.
We gonna burn the book?
I mean, I just don't want to make another character. I
Right.
don't want to introduce another character to a bunch of other characters and just pretend like that's a fun thing to do.
Right.
Like, hi, my name's Winklebot, and I lived in the corner. I saw your friend died, and I thought maybe I'll join these
Let me
people.
seamlessly enter your lives after that extremely traumatic event that you all just went through,
We
watching
all
your
seem to
party
know each
member
other really well.
die.
Yes, and there's no good way to do it, right? I
Right.
am also of the mind that I don't want to make a character play an NPC because
Right.
that's not fair. Like that takes a lot of their agency away. Um, I don't know. You're making good stuff. I like your stuff.
I like your stuff too. We make good stuff. We make good stuff out of Chicago. I'm just gonna say that
It's
right
fun.
now. It's a pretty cool town with pretty
It's a
cool
cool town.
people.
We're all nice,
For the most part.
mostly.
For the most part.
Yeah,
This
it's
is a
great.
brief
We,
pause. Well, yeah.
I mean, we're doing interesting things with beef. Uh,
We got that. We got
dipping,
divisive
dipping.
thoughts on pizza.
God, fuck that pizza, man. That's not pizza. I hot dogs. We love them.
We love them.
We got
We have strong
tons
thoughts
of.
about that too. We got strong thoughts about a lot of
Yeah,
things.
that's true. Yeah, a lot of opinions. Yeah, I don't know. I had a lot of fun working on Graveway because like I really like Slayers. I think that asymmetrical like character stuff is really cool. It reminds me of Netrunner,
Yep.
and like um, I had a lot of fun working on that. And like that city concept is so cool. Just that always expanding,
Yeah.
always changing. It's a nightmare. It
It's
sounds like a
truly, yeah.
fucking nightmare.
It sounds cool, and then you realize it probably sucks shit to be there.
Right. And like I was like, oh god, that sounds awful. And like, what would I want? And then when you were taking submissions, I was like, oh well, I always want haunted subway.
Yeah.
Because subways are weird
Already
places. They're
pretty
weird,
haunted.
yeah, they're weird liminal places
Hmm.
where like everything is just beyond like what you can see. And like I obviously my reference is the Chicago Transit Authority,
Right.
CTA. but like the MTA is weird. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very strange place. I don't know if you've ever been to San Diego, but the BART in San Diego is a very strange
No,
public
I
transit
haven't.
system.
Okay.
It's all layered.
Okay.
So, so there's like stations that are like multi-tracked.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So like it's like go down to the second for this one. It's a very weird public
Hmm.
transit system. Also, they have cushions on the trains, and I'm like,
I don't trust that.
that's a that's a rookie move, you
Uh-huh.
guys.
Uh-huh.
Like
That's a huge mistake.
you want a train car that you can just put a hose in and just like
Just purge it.
yeah, I mean like the first time I came to Chicago to look at schools in 2006,
Hmm.
uh I got on the blue line and it was on fire.
Sounds
And I
about
was
right
like,
for the blue.
I have to live here. I have to live here. Um or that time the blue line like went up at O'Hare, like tried to go up the stairs, like it was
Uh-huh.
people like it was like, I'm gonna get on a plane. Like,
Gonna miss my flight. Get me as close to that plane as you possibly can.
but I'm obsessed with city planning and infrastructure.
Hmm.
And so like the city and Slayers, like it's such a cool concept because like architecture living here in Chicago,
Yeah.
like architecture it's a big deal. And
Yeah.
like you get the Prairie School stuff. Like I said, I worked at the Art Institute. So like a lot of Sullivan stuff, a lot of Adler stuff.
Hmm.
Like walking around downtown is just a treat because you get to like see all this cool shit. And I love the idea of just this if because in my mind it's Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Like the Slayer city is Chicago,
Right.
and like it's like this endlessly looping Chicago, like uh, and so like yeah, subway, it just made sense.
Right. I'm super excited about the Graveway. Right now, in this moment, those of you who are watching this live, and Logan will get the news that I'm getting the draft of the almanac today with all the
Whoa!
layout and all the art and everything. So I will be sending that out to contributors to have them take a look. So keep an eye out later tonight for
Ooh,
some Graveway stuff.
like a digital
Yeah, like a
proof
digital
or
version of the whole thing. So it's
Nate?
the pre-print proof. Like look it over, make sure that it's got the stuff that we want, things are where they want to be, there's no glaring mistakes, and then we send that sucker out to PDF to everybody and send it off to the printer.
That's so cool. I'm very excited about it. There's that the the talent on that book is insane. Uh,
Ridiculous. I can't believe all of those people
I'm just
against
like, what the
working with
fuck?
me.
Uh, yeah, it's bonkers. That's like a murderer's row. I'm very excited about that book
Yeah.
because I think it'll be a really cool. I know it'll be really cool. Like I've read a bunch of the stuff that's come through. I've seen some of the art. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna be a. And then you already did an update to Slayers, right?
So the text is technically like written and edited and everything. So it's just a matter of Mike is immediately when he finishes Almanac is going to then do the updated art and layout for Slayers 1.5. So his
Mm,
estimate is
cool.
that gets done sometime in June. And then that'll just be a free PDF update to anybody who owns Slayers. They just get the new updated rules with the new art and layout, and then I'll finally do another print run because I've been holding off on doing a print run because I know there's a rules update that's like a reprint. So we'll do a print run sometime later this year for the new fancy rules and art, and because it looks good. I love the art style that Mike has been adapting for this stuff. It's very different for him from what he used to do when he was kind of originally doing art. So it's gonna look good. It's gonna look good.
That's awesome. That's great. I got to do another print run of the company. I make all those books by hand, so like
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
want to.
Yeah.
Um, I have all the paper though, so like that's good. I every time French paper has like a sale, I'm like, yeah, I could get some cardstock.
Sure.
And then it's just sitting like in the back. It's like, I should go find a wristgraph. Like I was working out of a co-op last year when I made the CRGs.
Mm.
I was working out of a co-op in Westtown. I just haven't been down there. I gotta get down there. I have an irrational fear of leaving my house.
Mm.
It's not irrational because pandemic.
Yeah. Pretty rational. Makes
But like
sense.
I started going out again, like to the music box mostly to see
Mm.
movies,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got COVID. So like I was like, so now I'm kind of like, cool, not leaving my house again.
Yep.
I got covered from a Nicolas Cage double feature, which is the most on brand thing I think I could have done. It was Matchstick Men and Face Off. It was
Okay.
35 millimeter print of Face Off. It was loud as fuck. And it was. I don't know if it was worth it,
Right.
but it was a good time.
But it makes
And,
sense.
like,
It all tracks.
and then I went back and like I got COVID and then it sucked. I don't recommend it. If anybody out there is thinking of it,
Yeah, I wouldn't
don't
recommend it.
wouldn't recommend it.
It was not fun.
So now I'm kind of like slowly putting myself back out there. I gotta go make. I just gotta go make covers.
Yeah.
Because there's the one thing I can't print at home. So like, but I have a giant paper cutter back. And, like I got a big stapler.
Okay,
And, like I just
okay.
make them all, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, but I like making them all because I have a vision for how it should look.
Yeah.
And feel like I like making objects. Because I think it adds something to it.
Yeah.
The glossy, soulless books that you buy at like Barnes and Noble, like the WotC books, or even like the Chaosium stuff. There's a, it's not personal. Like it doesn't feel warm. You know what I mean? Like it feels mass produced, and
Right.
it feels like, and there's something. If I'm gonna put a lot of time and like my whole mind into something, I really want to create a full product.
Yeah.
That like feels like it. And like I don't know if I have a copy of it. Yeah, I do.
Back there, yeah.
But like this is like, it's like chipboard.
Mm.
And I use a butcher's paper for the
Oh,
inside.
nice.
So like it's like slightly yellowed, and like
Yeah.
there's a sheen to it, and like it feels like something you would get from corporate.
From a corp, right? Exactly. Here's your handbook. Here's your employee
Right.
handbook.
And so like, and I always wanted it to be like players get a book, GMs get a book.
Right.
Like I think it's important. And then like everything's kind of built in. Like the character sheets are built into the spread. I don't know. I don't want you to have to turn a page to get information.
Yeah.
Like for me, that's a like, I'm running Lancer right now, right? Like I've been running it since January, and it rules. I love it.
Right.
But holy shit, that rule book, man.
Right.
Like, like bless linked PDFs. Because it links in bookmarks, and PDFs are like my savior on that. Because like we were running it on Thursday, and we were like, how do we do? I need you to make a hull save. I said this out loud. I need you to make a hull save. And my players were like, how do I do that? And I was like, that's a great question. I have no idea.
But it must be done.
And then like we found it and we figured it out. But like we're learning the system together, which I love. And like I do think GMs should know at least how to run the game they're running.
Right.
I say, well, not
without
doing that.
knowing our own rules.
But I'm enjoying, like, because plants are so crunchy, and it's so like, but that's what you want out of that game. Like the mech, the rules feel like the mech, right? Like they feel like, oh, there's all these little switches and like buttons, and like, oh, what's this doing? Like, oh shit, nope. Like it feels good, and like the RP on it is so light. Like it's just D20 rolls, and if you roll over 10, you're good. Right. And so like that's it. That's like the extent of the RP. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because you're not playing like, yeah, you want to play as the pilot and you want to like feel like that character, but that's not why you're here.
Right.
Like that's
we're
not
gonna get into our big fiddly mechs and destroy each other.
Yeah, and play 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Exactly.
And like because that's what it basically is. But like I like that a lot, but like that's not what I don't want to make that game. Right. That's not the game I want to make. I don't want to make big hardcover books. I want to make little personal trinkets. Like Jian Shim is making, like,
yeah, I know,
these amazing, thoughtful, like bespoke experiences that feel like fragile things, right? Which is all of this stuff is fragile, and like it should be, like, when you look at it like a work of art, like a piece of, like a memory you're creating for yourself. I think instead of treating it like this thing that should give me everything I want. I think like reframing these creations in a way that like someone put a lot of time and effort and care into creating this piece of art for you to enjoy. I think you start playing with it differently
Yeah.
and you start seeing different aspects of it. You're not going to get like a warm fuzzy feeling reading the player's handbook for Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I mean, maybe if you really like druids, but like it's just not a warm book.
Right.
It's not but it's not crafted to be. It's crafted to be a cold corporate missive
Hmm.
basically that's like sent out for mass appeal. And like I can see why a keepsake game or something is not for or a lyric game or
Right.
like something like there's so many people making so many cool things that are just like personal to them.
Yeah.
And I think and they're not afraid to put that out there. And that's it's so inspiring that we can like what is a game? It doesn't matter. There's no answer to that. It's what you want, what you think it is.
Hmm.
And there's so many people in the space like creating so many just wonderful fragile things that I want to keep and hold and cherish. Like I have fucking so many of these fucking zines.
I know.
And like I love all of them.
Hmm.
Like, there's so much cool stuff like Alt NYC
Yeah.
88 and like what do we got? What's there's Nova. Just so much cool stuff. I I'm I gotta stop buying zines like all the time, but just because I never
Because we don't play it.
I don't play them, which is
Right.
why I'm like trying to do this Morkborg League this summer because
Right.
I got piles of Morkborg zines.
Hmm.
It's a great system. So much fun. It accomplishes exactly what it wants to do
Right.
without a lot of bells and whistles. And it's just it's fun. And they're making such cool stuff for it. Like
There's
they're making
so much
stuff like
stuff out there for you to just find exactly the thing you want to engage with more Borg.
and stuff like Scumbirther and
Yeah. Oh my
Dungeon
god.
Gen and
Hmm.
like that stuff. Like we played a game. I ran a game of Morkborg in January that was just they were just Scumbirthing and I was just Dungeon Genning and we were just like making shit up as we went
Hmm.
and it ruled. We
Yeah.
just did a funnel like that. And like that's cool.
It is
Like
very
that's a
cool.
cool thing. Like it's a good alternative to like not everybody has 5 years to sit and run a campaign.
Right.
Like, not everybody has the patience for that. Not everybody has the interest for that. So, like, having these little trinkets, these little toys to play with, I think that's good. And people are often like, "Don't do you think there's too many role playing games?" I'm like, absolutely not.
No.
Like, that's like saying, "Is are there too many different kinds of bagels?" It's like, no,
Possible.
give me
Right.
more kinds of bagels.
Always surprise me with a new bagel, please.
Like, no, of course, as long as there's interest and play,
Right.
there's gonna be room for games. And like, I think there's too many board games? Abso-fucking-lutely. But like, but I don't think that creativity has a cap
Right.
in this type of thing. And I think as long as people want to find new ways to explore ideas, then there will always be room for this type of stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's a
It's
really lovely sentiment there. Uh,
yeah, I can be sentimental.
I
I
think
don't just
so.
scream on the internet.
Sometimes, every once in a while. Well, I think that's a good send off too for us
Sure.
in terms
Yeah,
of
I think that works out.
that feels like a good place for us to wrap up. Logan, do you have any places that people can find you if you wish to be found on the internet for all of
I
the good
am
company goodness and other stuff?
I am like terminally addicted to Twitter.
Hell yeah.
So I'm L underscore underscore Dean, the long L. Um if I have like weird I have like these my PFP is like me in these glasses.
Yep.
If you're and I'm the disgraced head of research at the company RPG. The company RPG at the company RPG is where I Uh, I I don't know what I'm doing with that. There's also a Sparrow one if you're interested.
Oh hell yeah.
The Sparrows, I gotta get back there. I gotta check on the board. They were supposed to elect a new CFO, and I haven't heard from them in a couple
Mm,
weeks. Megacorp, mega-corp.itch.io. That's where all the games live. Premium analog entertainment since 2019. Uh, I have been tinkering with a website. We'll see if that ever
okay.
comes to fruition. I'm working on a couple of games right now, but everything shows up on the itch. So, like, if you are interested in the new stuff, just follow there. Itch sends you an email when I
Yeah, when you make new
update
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the best place to follow for game stuff. If you want to hear my unhinged ranting, then follow me on Twitter. Um, that's it. I don't really live anywhere else on the internet.
Those are some good places to live. Those are some good
I
places to go find Logan.
It's a
Um,
big internet.
it turns out, yeah, it's kind of like the city. It just keeps going. And it's a nightmare. It seems
It
cool.
is a
It's
nightmare.
a prospect that seems interesting, and then you realize it's a nightmare. Uh,
Oh yeah,
Perfect.
it's like Kickstarter.
And it all comes back. Um, Folks, thank you all so much for coming and watching and chatting with us today, or if you're listening later on. I hope you enjoyed all of this. Next week will be our last week of coffee break before I do like a summer hiatus for a bit while I get married and do life stuff. So keep an eye out for that. We'll talk about I'll shout about it on Twitter in terms of what we'll be doing. But otherwise, all the links to everything that Logan just mentioned are in the description for wherever it is you are watching or listening to this. So go check them out, and we will see you all next week. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye.